But I think it's time now to wrap up this webinar. So the aim of today, if we come back to that, so we hope that you now have some more knowledge about PFAS chemicals, their concerns, and also ideas of the ongoing development of a broader PFAS legislation, and that you also have got some motivation and inspiration to collaborate within the supply chain towards the transition towards PFAS-free kitchenware. We have seen this mentioned by several of the speakers, and I just want to encourage you that if you have not seen these two, this documentary and this play movie, you should definitely see them, and that puts more perspective on what we have been talking about today. And it's also worthwhile seeing them one more time. So one thing is the PFAS exposure upon use, and as we have heard during today, it may not be the PTFE or the polymer coatings may not be very toxic during use, but it's worth saying that it's also when you sort of use them as they are recommended, so they should not exceed 260 degrees according to a producer webpage. And I just did a home test with a heat camera to see, okay, how fast do we exceed these temperatures? So I put the coated pan on the induction hob, more or less on the maximum power. I think the level right below the maximum power. And after 2 minutes, you had reached 400 degrees. And I would say that after 300 degrees, you start to see the smoke. So I think that people in the house, when they put on the heat and they start to see the smoke, they rush to the pan and they sort of decrease the heat. But it's quite easy to sort of exceed and not use the pan as maybe is recommended. And also did it with a waffle iron. So if it's empty, you can sort of exceed this 260 degrees. But what we have been talking to and trying to address today is the life cycle perspective of PFAS. And we know that the percentage of the total historical global porofluorocarboxylic acid emissions to the environment comes from fluoropolymer production, and such as PFOA. And continuous release of PFAS will result in increasing levels with increased possibilities of both known and unknown effect, and this is not reversible. So we need to think about the production, and we need to think also about the challenges in the waste when becoming waste. There is a high cost related, both health-related costs and cleaning up polluted areas that comes from PFAS emissions in the environment. We have the broader PFAS regulation that will be submitted in July this year, with a possible implementation by 2025. So the raised concerns of PFAS are the reason why retailers and producers ask already, or will ask, about details about chemical ingredients, and also request PFAS-free alternatives and solutions. And this will be then questions that go beyond the existing regulation, but it's because of being prepared for either coming regulations and or to be more sustainable, being in the forefront. We see a big industry push, I would say, in PFAS-free solutions. We can see it in the ChemSec PFAS movement, where companies that sign up are behind the broader PFAS regulation, and they are also either already has or we are want to phase out PFAS. We had within the last year, we gathered the kitchenware industry in Sweden. We arranged a similar webinar to this one, but in Swedish. And we also followed that up with a workshop where we had, I think, 25 companies present, and we discussed challenges and solutions and activities needed towards PFAS-free kitchenware. And I just want to highlight, and it's not one company would do all of this, so it's different sort of stakeholders involved in different activities. But this is the webinar in English that we thought was important to initiate the dialogue further. Identifying PFAS in their products and assortment is ongoing, and you may get questions about content for detailed understanding. We have not talked so much about test methods, so I mentioned it a little bit, but that will also be under discussion during this year in POPFREE Industry, with focus on total floor because of this broader PFAS restriction. And I also want to highlight as the final thing that it's important to sort of how you communicate with customers, because customers and consumers in general are getting quite aware, and they want to do sustainable choices. So it's a good thing to clearly indicate which products do or do not contain PFAS in an easy way. Yeah, so just make it easy for the consumer. It's very challenging for consumers to make educated, sustainable choices with no information about chemical content and greenwash attempts. It's quite easy as a consumer, if it says PFAS-free and you have a green leaf, that you really have made a sustainable choice if you have no idea about what PFAS is. And it's not only in kitchenware, we also see this in other product categories. So I encourage you to have a dialogue within your value chains and within your company and with customers. And if you're interested in a further dialogue, collaboration, and or participation in a future competence center, you should contact me or Tony. And with that, I would say thanks for participating. And if you have any questions or input on today's webinar, please feel free to email us. We will not send out sort of an evaluation form or anything, but if you have any input, feel free to email us directly. Thank you very much for today.